I'm probably going to get cancelled for it. But, you know, when people say, like, I've come out of the closet, this is my sexuality, I'm gay, blah, blah, blah. I feel like to a degree, this is how it feels with me becoming openly myself in the public of, like, I love all my spiritual stuff. I love diving deep about, behind the veil and, so many different things, but you have to pick your audience. And that scares me, is that I can't freely show up as that. And again, it goes back to that whole, like, profiles that we are in society.
Good. So this could be our cancel episode then, right? Because we do need to address it, right? It's like, in my mind, I want to love these people. I want to, just like you said before, it's like, I want to understand their perspective. Like, why are you bothered by this? Because everybody listening to this probably wants also be real. They probably want to also just fucking relax and just be how they are and like work on their shit. Like, okay, I said this thing that is getting me canceled. I can see how people would their feelings would be hurt by that. Like, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Maybe it does make sense to adjust my language or whatever it is. So for me and the podcast, the point is like, if I can be real and just say, let my perspective play out. Let's see what it does. And then from there, we can learn from the perspective, and the perspective can change. So giving people a place in this podcast would be it for me. Giving people a place to show up and just fucking let your perspective come out. We'll explore it, because if you're like, oh, I hate old people or whatever your problem is, like, let's just take a look at it. Right. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to get offended. I don't want to be offended. That's how it looks to you. I want to know why. I actually want to know why. Like, what did old people do to you? You're going to be old. What do you think about that? Do you have grandparents? Yeah, I hate my grandparents. You know what I mean? Like, a safe place where there's no judgment, I think, is what we're talking about, right? There's no judgment. Yeah. It's because it's just like, that's your perspective. If I have a problem with it, I'm upset. Whether or not I'm upset about it, like, that's still your perspective, so disconnecting from that place of judgment, allowing people to be who they are, because that's who they are. And then from there, just growing together.
There's an element of you that wants to blow up and wants to blow up on social media, but there's also an element of you that's, like, I'm not a clout chaser. I'm not someone that wants to get heaps of follows, heaps of likes, heaps of this, because that feels kind of icky to you as well. It's just hard. Like, there's that balance.
Is that because you think like, oh, I know I'm not supposed to want this because that's ego?
I don't know. There's so much to it. There's so much that I consider. I'm like, yeah, is this what I want, or is this what my ego wants? Like, is this something that I truly want to be in this world, or is this something that I'm supposed to do because society deems it as you should be an influencer, or you should, plug yourself? There is so much. I have this internal battle, and I think that ties in with the insecurity thing as well. It's almost poison, don't you think? It's almost poison of like, oh no, I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid. But at the same time, I sort of want to drink the Kool-Aid to put my message across. But then I'm like, who am I to get my message?
Oh, hell no. Fuck that. I'm like, they said, if you want to find out who somebody really is, give them power and see how they respond. So then I think, man, what if I did blow up on an Eckhart Tolle or something like that? And then I'm like a fucking dickhead or whatever. And, I just like would imagine like, I would just, I'd have to like cancel out of it. Be like, yeah, it didn't, everything I'm saying is bullshit, But sorry, I do feel, I feel like I would want to blow up so that I could finally just be who I want to be. You know what I mean? Like, anybody in my town who sees me would know, like, maybe they wouldn't, because they wouldn't even know Eckhart Tolle, right? But then I could just like, not that I would, but I could like wear a monk robe and just be all my monk self or something like that. But that's bullshit, because I could just do that now if I really wanted to. I just probably have some kind of desires and stuff that are in the way of actually just living how I want to.
If you were to authentically show up as your most authentic self, how would you dress?
I would dress just like I'm dressed right now. Like I did upgrade recently my sweatpants, because I basically at the house all the time. So I'm wearing these sweatpants, And my friend's daughter comes over. She's like, "Oh my God, are your sweatpants 3D?" And so they just have like this like hashed pattern in, like there's like stitched diamonds. So they actually look like you could wear them out and you're just not like some bum. So I don't want to offend any bums, but that's just what I grew up learning about was bums. So, if you're unhoused, I don't mean to make you feel bad about that. But if you are unhoused, you should come on the podcast so we could talk to you about your thoughts about it. Where are you at with that? Like, do you like being unhoused? Do you want to be housed? And are you struggling? Are you suffering while you're unhoused? And even for somebody who's unhoused, it's like, are you at perfect peace with where you're at? Because that's where in my mind, that's where we want to be. We're at perfect peace. And now what makes sense to do next?
Yeah.
And for everybody, that's different. So I don't want to see somebody at a different economic status than me and think, oh, well, that's unfortunate. Like they might be totally happy with that. They don't need all the stuff that other people need. So I don't want to just assume that, people are less fortunate. I mean, they might be living an amazing life.
Why are we judging others? And it's also a reflection of ourselves. What are we projecting outwards that's become almost our reality or our truth? And it's so interesting in that I think a majority of women are very insecure. And again, I think about it a lot about, is that how society has raised women? How we're supposed to put them down a peg in order for them to feel insecure? Are men also worried that women are quite magical beings, that they've had to put them down a peg to sort of be like, you're not great. I can replace you, or, you're just there for reproducing. But it's almost like a conditioning that I've noticed within a female sort of setting with a lot of women. Like it's the funniest thing at the moment. So like yesterday was mine and my husband's like 9th wedding anniversary, and I worked from home. So I just look like a rat most of the time. I just dressed like a slob. And I just I got dressed because I was like, I'm so sick of feeling like a rat. Like I just want to feel good. So I got changed, and it wasn't anything fancy sort of thing. And we were in the car, and Chris was like, where do you want to go for dinner? And I was like, oh, I can't be bothered going out for dinner. Like, I'm happy just to get takeaway and like go home. And then Ellie was like, I think it's good that you get dressed up because, if you were to bump into somebody, they'd be like, hey, like, I want to be your friend. And like, when she said that, I thought, oh, that's such a beautiful thing that an 8-year-old said. And then in my head, I was like, I don't want to dress for someone to like be their friend. Like I want to assess them and be like, should you be my friend? And that's how things have changed now. I used to be so insecure that I would dress up for people like, I hope they like me. I hope they like what I'm about. And now it's just like changed. Like, I don't give a fuck what you think of me. If you're not a vibe for me, if you're not a fit for me, like I just don't really mesh with you. And that's a shift in it. And I'm wow, okay. Being okay with yourself is just such a non-experienced thing in this world.
So where do you draw the line then? Because obviously you brush your hair before you leave. You brush your teeth before you leave. I'm sure there's maybe you put on a little blush or whatever. What's the line? I mean, like if you're the only person in the world, well, you're really the only person in the world in your own house, right? So if you get up and you don't brush your teeth for 3 hours and you're just doing whatever you do, you didn't brush your hair. But when you go out of the house, you do those things. There must be a reason why.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've really noticed is I'm happy to be a rat by myself and sit uncomfy in my rat self and just festering away, just, doing rat things. But I will show up when Chris comes home, Ellie comes home, and I'm like, all right, I need to show up for them. And I need to not be my most unhinged rat self because they'll be like, oh, my mum looks tired. I'll do it for them. But then I also feel like I get a lot out of making myself feel good. So if I do my hair and, do my makeup, I feel good within myself. And maybe that's just a beautiful little feminine thing. I think a lot of women feel that if you do yourself up for you, like that's when all your power comes from. So that's why I do it. I can't be a rat forever.
Well, there is and we do this too, I'm sure. We judge books by their covers. And if we're meeting new people, then what do they have to, they're forming opinions immediately, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you got a little booger on your face and you got eye crusties over here. You know what I mean? They're already forming an opinion of, yeah, this person doesn't seem like they're really taking care of themselves, you know? I mean, I feel like that's just natural. That's just going to happen. So, yeah, you know, like if I leave, I'm probably going to, at a minimum, throw my jeans on rather than wearing my sweatpants out of the house. But, you know, I'm a guy. I don't even have hair. So if my beard is going too long, maybe I run the little beard brush through it.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, yeah, so it's interesting because I do throw the jeans on and I don't necessarily know why I do it. I just feel like it's a little bit less slobby. But also from another perspective, if I'm going out and going to be sitting at a restaurant, I don't want to be wearing my sweatpants and then come home and be, you know, sitting all over my house in my outside clothes. So that's my own personal preference myself. But
Like 3 different personalities. You've got your side home where you're comfy and you'll go and slip into those clothes that make you feel comfortable. But then I also feel like when you go outside, you're almost putting on this like protective coating of, for a girl, it's like if I put makeup on, someone's not going to look at me and go, oh my God, she looks haggard, as opposed to like, oh, she looks pretty, do you know what I mean? We're still in a degree are so conscious and so sort of, I wouldn't say scared, but we have a consciousness that other people are judging us. And I don't think that will ever leave anyone. I've been like, hey, I need to be smart for this, you know, a job interview. It's always showing up. And it's like how that becomes in your society. Are you masking and becoming that person always? Or are we only doing this for special occasions?
I think it comes down to, you know, what's the cost to get what you want and are you willing to pay it? So if you go to your work, you know, you kind of need to put on your khaki pants and you need to put on your buttoned shirt. And that's just kind of like the culture there. Because you know that if you want this job, you know, there's certain expectations, there's certain kind of like cultural demands, norms in the workplace. So you kind of have to abide by those, I feel like. You know, and then there's like the idea of I don't care what people think, which if you go around and ask everybody, they're probably going to say, yeah, I don't care what people think. But it's not true, you know, for a lot of people, for most people, I would imagine they actually do care. But it's like, I do know that they do think, right? So then it goes back to that cost evaluation of like, okay, well, I know, you know, people are going to perceive me a certain way and I'm trying to accomplish something in the workplace, whether it's getting promoted or just maintaining my job. So it makes sense to, you know, play the part, to dress up, to, you know what I mean? So it's not like, I think there's a difference between doing it because it makes sense to do it versus doing it and like, oh, I have to do this and I don't want people to think badly of me and I'm insecure and stuff like that. Don't you think so?
Yeah. You have to watch Severance because this is so it, like about who we become in like the workplace and, you know, like the roles that we play. And it's almost, you have to play that role even though that you don't want to and you want to be a slob or you want, you know, dress however you want to, you still have to play this role in order to sort of not win in society, but just play your part in society if you want to. So like who you speak to, and you can speak to, you know, the most spiritual people within the world, they still have to play a role in society that they don't necessarily like truly love, but they're doing it to gain something, if to gain, you know, money for their family or to gain, you know, like a career that, you know, they're very much passionate about. There is just so many things that there is a sacrifice to you having to play the part, which also falls into, you know, so much of the insecurity of us as humans just showing up. And it's almost like an injustice to play these roles because that's not who I am. But at the same time, we're all playing these roles.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think too, is like everything's a role. Everything, you know, being a mother, it's like, you know, and there's like the whole thing of like, well, you act differently around different people. It's like, yeah, of course I do. Like that's obvious. Everybody does. I'm not going to be the same person at work as I am at home. You know, in general, yes, my values are probably going to be consistent and stuff, but I'm going to be work Jay who shows up, you know, and I'm going to be when I'm around Ella and talking with Ella, I'm going to be Dad Jay. Like, you kind of fall into these roles automatically. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean? It's just like, what behavior, and this is probably not even a conscious thing, but what behavior makes sense for this role? And then that's the behavior that's going to manifest.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole like roles of like who you are for different people. Like, I love that quote of like, when they say like not one person can fill up, your cup of like how you feel loved. You will have several people in your life and you will be these different characters to these people, and they will give you a certain thing that, other people can't. And that's how we are as humans. We're different people, even, if you have, a major falling out with somebody, you're a villain in their story. And it's also like accepting that, yeah, that's fine. I'm okay to be a villain in that, because I know full well who I've showed up as, and it's being sure of yourself of like how I've showed up. I think that's the hardest bit. Is like we just doubt ourselves so much. Be like, did I make the right decision? Am I parenting right? Am I doing the right thing at work? Am I, showing up as the best wife I possibly can be? Am I, making my mum and dad proud? There are so many factors of like the month that we just present to people. And it's exhausting.
Well, can we show up? Can we still do all that from a place of peace? Can we still can we still ponder those questions without insecurity, without shame and guilt? Hey, did I do the right thing today? Oh, and not did I do the right thing as in like I'm a piece of crap, but what makes sense moving forward for the future? Like, my daughter was backing into the garage. She's learning how to drive. And I was like, what? Trying to scare her. She's like, oh, Dad, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't like that. Don't do that. She was I like how adamant she gets. Like, she will put her foot down. And I'm like, okay, cool. You got to do this. But she's like, I don't want you to do that. I was like, okay. I made sure I let her know, like, I hear you. I understand you didn't like that. Here's why I'm doing it. You're going to be driving with your friends. They're going to spill their cup. They're going to be squealing about something they saw on their phone, and you need to be ready for this. So does it make sense for me to do that in the future? Not like, oh, why did I do that? She didn't like it and I forced my way on her. I don't need to go to that level. I can still look at those things. Did I do that? Did I think it was best? She tried to express herself to me and I just basically steamrolled her and said, no, I need to do these things. I can reflect on that to improve for the future, but I don't need to do that to beat myself up, because I know that my perspective is always just simply playing out, and so is hers. So I don't need to be upset with her that she went off on me, because that's what looked best to her. So that's what I'm kind of thinking, like, we can still reflect on these things and our behavior can change, because that's just what the perspective does, right? It's just learning and growing all the time, but we don't need to suffer in that.
Yeah. And in itself, like, I feel like this week as well, like, there is so much to that. And I feel like there is also so much growth as a person, as who you are in the world. If you aren't like, well, that's just who I am. It's like, okay, I'm really sorry if that affected you in X, Y, and Z. Like, let me work on that. And it's not me like, let me just change my whole personality. That's not that at all. It's just adjusting for them. And there's such a beautiful flow when you can say, hey, like, I'm really sorry if I upset you with this, or, like, I'm aware of it. But I feel like our society is like, no, I'm fine. Like, that's just who I am. Love me or hate me. Like, and it's like, oh, but yes, I get it. There is so much of it that I think that you should stand strong within yourself. But when it's detrimental to others and like other people are, hey, that upsets me, like, can you maybe like, change whatever it is, sort of thing. I think as someone who has truly worked on themselves, that is such a beautiful gift, or, a beautiful sort of asset of themselves, that they can sit there and go, yeah, maybe I could just adjust that. That's not going to ruin who I am as a person. I'm just trying to accommodate those people within reason. There's the whole boundaries that come into play as well. But I think that itself, especially like in our family dynamic, like, I love the fact that we could say like, hey, I'm really sorry if that upset you. Like, I'm mindful of that. rather than be like, no, well, that's just a you issue. You know, there's beauty in it.
Right. Yeah. I think we can apologize that the person was hurt, you know, depending on the relationship. It might be good to explore why they were hurt. Like, hey, you know, do you know why you were hurt? You know, because yes, your mind judged this as negative. Does that, man, that was last night, you know. We finished watching Severance, the first episode, which was pretty awesome. Did you watch the second episode yet?
We're going to tonight. Like, I can't even tell you how, like, the first episode, I was like, to Chris, I was like, this is a masterpiece. This is a true masterpiece. It's just so clever. But the reasonings behind, you know, the whole Severance was like, the guy who wrote it was like, I just want to dissociate for the 8 hours that I'm at work. And like, it's so good because it's so dystopian, sort of, you know, it's actually played it perfectly. But yeah, I just already love it. I'm already like, I'm hooked.
Yeah, for if anybody hasn't seen it, you know, basically what you do is, as a person, you decide, like, I'm going to work for this company and I'm going to get severed internally. So I have no memories of my outside world while I'm at work. And then while I'm at home, I have no memories of my work life. And I was like, I totally would do that, you know, because for me, I'm self-employed and it's like everything I'm doing just bleeds through my whole entire life. My personal bleeds into my work bleeds into my personal. I did think, like, man, that's probably not good, you know, like if your daughter gets hurt at school, like, well, I don't even have a daughter, you know, because you're at work, you don't know anything about her. But then my wife and I both agreed, like, you need to get disconnected for sleep too, right? So you got 3 parts. You got your sleep where you just cryogenic, you know, go under, let me get my full rest. I'm not disturbed by anything that's going on in my life. Let me wake up, go to my work life, and let me come home and be in my personal life. Yeah, that's interesting. So would you get disconnected?
Yeah. I really, there's so much of it. Like, I really struggle, especially like working from home, and like, you know, that in itself, saying that I'm very blessed to be able to work from home. But I feel like I get on to like my desk and I just sort of feel like I lose time. I'm just like, I'm stuck and chained to this desk. And when I move away, I'm like, oh my God, I can side quest. Oh my God, like my pond's outside. Oh my God, I can see my cat. And it's so hard because we truly are connected to our work. We truly are plugged in. So I feel like, yeah, there is so many like elements of it. Like, I love the first part of it. You know how he was like crying in the car?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really know about that afterwards. Like, why was he crying? But that was his different world, and he just got to work, and it's like, you know, when he went in the elevator and he changed, it's like, oh my God, this is just so beautifully well done.
Still insane if you
started watching it as well.
Yeah, I know. I told my wife, I was like, we should try to watch the episodes at the same time so then we can chat about the episodes as we go. But so last night we finished that and I was like, damn, it's 8:30. My wife's like exhausted. I was like, I have so much time. Let me go ahead and knock these dishes out and I go downstairs and I can get into some Epicureanism, study some philosophy. Well, I decided to call my sister instead. So I was chatting with her while I was doing the dishes, you know, so it was 53 and I'm trying to go to bed by 10. And I have this feeling inside me that's like this anxiousness, like, you know, because I wanted to get into my philosophy and stuff, and I didn't get to do that. But then it was like this place of peace that I went to, and it was like, okay, well, here's where I'm at. That's what looked best to call my sister. What makes sense to do now? Because I can stay up and study philosophy if I want, but I also want to go to bed on time. So it was just a very peaceful place of allowing the different factors to get weighed out, you know, subconsciously mostly, and just see, like, what is it that I want to do? What makes sense to do? I don't need to be bummed out, you know, like, fucking that doesn't even make sense, because if I want to stay up, I can. So I was just sat there in my chair, just kind of sitting, not necessarily thinking of anything. And it was like, you know what? I kind of just want to go to bed. So I got up and I just did my couple last things, and I was just like hopping in bed all pumped up about getting excited that I'm going to bed. And I was like, man, if I could just live from that place of what makes sense to do next, like, what the fuck's the problem? And the past doesn't have anything to do with me, except that I can learn about it from the future. Because the past it was all just weighed out too. That's why I did what I did. So yeah, I'm severed from the past, and now I'm just in the present. So it's like, what makes sense to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, I think personally for me, like I'm such a like dopamine hunter. I will constantly just source dopamine a little route. But, I think at the same time, it's also like, what's going to also serve me in my life good right now? Like, I think future Tani would appreciate if I had an early night. So I'm always just trying to be like, what would future Tani want? Like, how would that serve her rather than be like, I bet like future Tani can deal with, me being tired because, I've just stayed up late, like going through some, wormhole about something. And my struggle as well. My struggle is the wormholes. My struggle is like trying to find these like dopamine hits and things that just don't serve me. So I try and look at it from like a very much like highest good of what would be beneficial for Tani right now. In the future, probably an early night, probably not having, a million glasses of red wine and just, binge watching, a show. I have to see it from a light of like what will serve her, but also what will serve my people around me. So, my daughter, my husband, what would be of Tani's highest good to be able to create that for them. So that's where I see it. And that's the hardest bit as well, because I'm plugging into all these different personalities. So I'm a mum, I'm a wife. I'm also, at work. I'm also, like fun Tani when she's out doing her own little thing. There's so many things that I have to plug into that almost scare me sometimes because I'm like in autopilot most of the time.
How do you think your roles, not your roles, your values play into that? Like, clarification of values to you, right? So that way, I think that's important because then when you're weighing out what makes sense to do, you know what I mean? Like you're clear on what's important to you versus if you're really, you know what I mean? Like you really haven't sat down to, I guess you don't really even need to sit down, but it seems like if you know what you want, if you know what's important to you, these decisions might be a little bit easier, right? Does
Yeah.
that make sense? To also say real quick, like I saw a definition of happiness. A lot of people get confused on, we're like, oh, I'm happy. You're irritated right now. Happiness is not like in this moment, instant gratification. It's like, how's my life going overall? So I feel like if we have that kind of like zoomed out perspective, yes, okay, right now it would be good to binge watch this show, but I'm not looking at what's best in this very moment. I'm looking at what's best for me this week or this whatever. Right. So yeah, I just guess, like values in like what's important to you and then actions directed based on that.
And that in itself is like such a potent question because there's so much of it. But I think this week, especially this week, I feel like I've had a lot of like beautiful lessons this week, and especially like speaking about, getting a new laptop and, kind of suffering within that because like, again, I'm not too sure what I want to get. Like we've been slammed with bills and it's like, I can't quickly access that now. And having access to that straight away would give me like instant dopamine gratification hit. But within the suffering becomes almost beautiful happiness. And that I feel you can't have happiness without suffering. And I mean suffering in a term of like, I'm not saying suffer, but I'm saying instant gratification that our society is constantly needing, buy now, like instantly, DoorDash, Uber, instantly get food. We instantly get things when we need it. And I think there is so much beauty into almost not working for it, maybe working for it. Sometimes it is working for it, but working for something gives you more gratification. And it's so funny as well because I had this like really beautiful sort of eye-opening, experience state. So like Ellie had her swimming carnival and she has this friend who's very insecure, so insecure. He came fifth in her race and this girl came third. And they went and sat down afterwards and the girl was just like, I didn't do very well, sitting there very like glum, waiting for Ellie to be, you did great, you came third, I came fifth, sort of thing. And Ellie said to me, I just wanted to tell her to shut up. It really annoyed me that, she sat there and she got third and I got fifth, and I had to make her feel better when, I lost to her. And I was like, okay, that's such an interesting concept that like even someone who's received third, as opposed to fifth, is sitting there and they're not in a state of happiness of like, oh my God, I did it. They're sitting in a state of like, I need someone to make me feel good about the fact that I got third. And that in itself was such a like really weird, beautiful lesson to sort of witness. And then she came second overall for all the girls. And, she had her like little medal that was given to her. And I watched her go up to, the where I was sitting, and she sat next to her friend and she took the medal off and she put it on her friend, and I was like lip reading and like concerned with Ellie. And she was saying, you deserve it more than me. I didn't do very well. You deserve it more than me. And I was like, oh my God, that in itself, you've just been given, you came second. That's incredible. But because you didn't truly feel that speaks volumes. And I think that in itself is like such a potent lesson about society. Is like you can grab all these things, you can attain, you can be awarded all these things, but unless you truly feel that in yourself, that isn't like an instant gratification. That isn't a dopamine hit. That isn't something that you're like, I'm proud of myself. You have to truly feel. And she's always...
Yeah, I just feel like socially, there's almost like this like desperation to connect with others or to like form friendships or whatever. And it's like, but also I don't know how other people are, so like if I'm trying to connect with them, am I going too deep, too early, that type of thing. So, but I feel like now what's happening is I'm just like, fuck it. Like, this is me. I'm all I can operate on my perspective. I know that's true. I know it's true. 100%. There's no doubt about it. I can't do differently than what looks best to me. So if I don't have the knowledge socially, then I need to get that knowledge. And how am I going to get it? Well, probably going to have to get it firsthand experience. Like watching these different TV shows is helpful because people are playful and they joke and they're not getting offended when somebody says something to them. So I think all those things are helpful. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal now, which is like freedom. That's the freedom that I want in the first place. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. Like my husband says it to me all the time. And it's like, I just want to get deep with people. I don't want like, shallow talk. I don't want to, talk about, just what did you have for dinner? I had this. What did you have for dinner? I'm like that too direct. And a lot of people resonate and they're like, yes, I love this about you. But then other people are like, I can't get that deep with that person. To me, I crave, and like, I think I've had this throughout my whole life. And I've always wondered a lot about why I crave the sort of like depth I have. It's just that I don't think a lot of people ever truly want to like, get deep. And I think that's also the most heartbreaking thing that like I've ever experienced in my life is I just want to get deep with people. I want to get deep to the point of like, I think surface levels, your political beliefs, who you are in society, what you're about, what you dress like, all of that, right? I don't give a fuck. I do not give a fuck. Would not give a fuck. I want to know deep down. I want to know who makes you cry at night. I want to know, what your traumas are. I want to know what your most fucked up dream is. There's so much of it that like I want to know, but I don't get that a lot from people, and therefore I almost pull myself back. It's like I reel myself back and I'm like, you can't authentically show up, as you want, because this is just not becoming the crowd or the people for it to land on. And I have just felt so lost my entire life because it's so hard to find people to, have conversations and do you actually think that, maybe, aliens exist or, the fact that like I had so many, weird sort of ghost encounters as a kid, like I truly believe that's true. But I can't say that to people. I can't, like it's almost like I feel I've got this hidden life that I keep so buried within me. And I'm so scared to let that out. So this whole podcast, who I am, who I show up with, on social media, scares the shit out of me because I've hidden it for so long.
There must be something that you're scared of losing, right? There's a fear or there's a desire there, right? You want to be, I would imagine there's like top level looking for acceptance and fear of rejection, right? Because what else would there be? I just said that yesterday on our chat. I was like, if I had $1 billion, like I want to give a fuck, I'm just going to wear what I want to wear. Somebody says something to me, I just fucking be like, that's hilarious. Keep on going. Why couldn't I just do that now? There's got to be something that we want that's preventing this. And Epictetus, he's a Stoic philosopher. He says, when I see somebody with anxiety, I wonder, what do they want? Because if they didn't want something, what do they need to be anxious about? They wouldn't have any anxiety. Oh, and I did want to mention too, like, so when you say go deep, right? It's like, hey, did your mom hit you with a belt when you were a kid? It's like, oh, what was your name again? You know what I mean? Like, that's like, there's a depth, or is it more of like the realness, just being real, just being fucking relaxed, not insecure, not trying to put on a front of who you are. It's just like fucking being relaxed and just like chatting about what the fuck ever. Is that what you're talking about when you say deep?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's also, there's such a beauty in like the fact that I feel I've really sort of softened and become quite vulnerable, that the people around me, I just love like my little tribe around us, because I'm able to get very just deep and very authentically myself. I don't care what I say. And I think that in itself scares me about becoming myself within social media, because I'm so scared of this cancel culture. And then in my head, I'm like, why are you scared? But it is such a big thing. Someone will take something that you said, but I don't agree with this, and they'll go on this rampage. And to me, that is just pure anxiety. That scares the shit out of me, that someone could, start this just hatred of who you are as a person, and there's death threats, and, a lot of your family sort of, in the mix of it, and, there's threats to them. I just hate society as that we can't go, you know what, that's how they think, that's their opinions. That's what scares me about being openly out there. And I'm not even saying openly out there, because to a degree, sometimes I feel like, and again, 100%, I feel like that's like my life lesson. But it's also that, I want to understand someone's perspective. And, sometimes I feel like that is a blessing and a curse, because, this is like such a moral driven man where he's like, nah, fuck me over, like, done. Like, and I'm like, but the reasons why they did the things they did, and I can list like X, Y, and Z, and it's their childhood, it's this, that, it's, all these things. Not a lot of people can, come from a place of understanding. A lot of people are like, nah, this is what I think, and therefore this is what it is, like war that started from this, it's religion, it's all of us as a society. It's like, nah, left or right, we've spoken about this a lot. It's like, you're either in the blue side or the red side. There is no in between. There is no like, hey, like I can see both perspectives. That's the hardest bit about working in society, is that, a lot of people aren't open-minded. A lot of people aren't like, let's explore it. Like, tell me why you're triggered. A lot of people aren't willing to get there and get to that vulnerable place, which infuriates me, because that the only place that I'm coming from is a place of like, let me understand you more, but let me also give you the opportunity for you to understand me. But that's just like it's just like a not knowing thing. It's just a thing as a society that we're just supposed to hate and, divide. It's a conflict.
So let's explore that infuriation that you said. It infuriates you, right? Is infuriation the correct verb form?
Can't even tell you.
Okay, so let me ask you that. So like, is that being infuriated, is that a frustration that we just can't get past this? Or, you know what I mean? Because like, for somebody's perspective who is offended about somebody else's perspective, we have to respect that part too. You know what I mean? Like, so what's that being infuriated? What's the object of?
I think I'm infuriated. I think me personally, I hate speaking of an I term, but the reason why I get so infuriated with it, because I feel like I'm very non-judgmental. You who come to me and say like, hey, I'm a heroin addict, like I've like bought heroin instead of feeding my baby. And I don't think I'd sit it like, oh, you should, this is what you should do. I'd sit it and be like, okay, like, let's talk sort of thing. And with that becomes, I can get burnt from that because that person may use me, to, get their things. But it comes from a place of infuriation because no one's willing to say, hey, maybe I could do better in that, or hey, maybe I saw that wrong, or hey, maybe like I didn't see it from that lens. That's where I get infuriated from, because I feel like every single conflict I've had in my life with people, everyone very much sits on their high horse, being like, no, I'm right in my actions. You've got issues. And me as a person that I feel is very self-aware will sit there and I'll start thinking, I am the problem. And I will start thinking that I'm the problem. And that's why I'm insecure, because I've now become the problem because someone's deflected the fact that, they don't believe with how I thought. And this is what I can tell you, it actually like, I want to shove blunt objects into somebody's eyeballs when we get like this in person, in everything. Because I just want to be like, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Put your ego down for 2 seconds. Come into me with a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of understanding that we're human. We're meant to fuck up. Everything's like an experience, a lesson. Just sit from the angle. Fucking tone down his ego. Like, just like it's on 0 right now. If we can get to here, this is when we can start to make change, with our relationships, with the people in our life. No one's willing to get there. No one's willing to let that guard down. And that's where I sit in frustration of insecurity, because I'm like so willing to be there.
I'm just going to say, like, where we're talking about right now, where we're headed with this conversation is world fucking peace. And that sounds so arrogant. And it's like, you're not going to solve world peace. It's like, so let me ask you, right? You want to shove something in her eye, obviously, in a not really, you don't want to, but that's, you're irritated with where they're at. What do you think about that from a place of judgment, right? Because your mind is judging that negatively. That's causing you a stress and mental suffering. In my mind, that's the same as the racist who we talk to and just say, like, I'm curious, like, why does it look this way to you? Really? Because like, it seems like you're wanting to meet somebody different than the person that you're meeting. Like, they can't see it that way. They literally do not see it that way. And from a place of love and understanding is like, oh, I wonder why it looks to you like that. I'm really actually genuinely curious, because they don't even know they're operating on ego, right? They just think like, you shouldn't be like this. It's like, well, some people are like this. Like, that is how it works. So I think this is the piece right here that we need to look at, right?
What do you? Great. And I sit there as well and I'm, yeah, but I've got an ego by me saying this. I've got an ego by me saying, oh, this is what we should be doing. I'm not, and that's what really kills me. It's like, that's your ego speaking, honey. And again, at the world, if I've got my ego here and this person's got their ego here and I see things differently, who's right or who's wrong? And again, it goes back to that world peace thing, because the world will be such a happier place if everyone came from a place of love. But it's never going to be like that. It's never going to be all beautiful, rainbows, lollipops. It's never going to be like that. So how are we meeting each other? Like, for the people who want to work on themselves, which I love and fully appreciate, someone who can truly go, you know what, like, I fucked up, or, I'm working on this, like, I've got anger issues, like, full hand on heart. I'm an angry woman sometimes, and I work so hard on that. But I can honestly, hand on heart, say I'm working on it. Like, I'm aware, I'm not sitting there being like, well, it's because of, X, Y, and Z. It's because I'm aware. I am very self-aware. I get it. But that also comes from a place of ego, which kills me.
Yeah. So what's the answer to that then? Well, how do you move to that next level from the place where you're at in there? And we really need I think we really need a realistic conversation, right? So when you say that infuriates me, what is this person doing? They're just basically saying that they're right and they're not open to hearing what you have to say, or, like, what is it Because we need a real life example to take a look at, don't we here?
Feel like that's how I feel with people when, especially with my breathwork stuff, like people come in with all these issues. And I was like, this isn't my issue to solve. Like, this is for you to solve. But also, like, see it from a different perspective. See it from, like, what is this teaching me? What can I change? What can I modify? See it from a perspective of, like, I can make changes to my life. That's what fucks me off. Because people aren't capable of making changes. They just would rather suffer. The suffering is more than the dopamine or the happiness.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. So then there's reality, right? Which is what you're looking at. And then there's your mind's opinion of it. And it's the same for everybody, right? So how do we meet people where they are, which is accepting and loving them because that's their perspective. But also, if somebody wants to work on their stuff, because some people are like, I don't even want to talk about it. I have this one lady in my life, I just sent you the text, and she's like, my kids are mediocre. They just want to be ordinary. And to me, I'm like, your kids want to be ordinary. That's how it looks to her. They might not want to be, right? But let's assume that they are. Your kids want to be ordinary. That's reality. Your mind's having a problem with that. You think that's not okay. You think their perspective is wrong. You think you know the truth and they don't. And you're not going to change your mind. And you don't want people trying to tell you that what you see, the way that you see it might not be the best way to see it. You don't want to hear that, but you want to tell other people that their perspective, they need to see it differently, right? So that whole piece right there, it's like, that's fucking hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, you're in the matrix. You don't even know you're in the matrix. These are your kids and you're not accepting them. You're not accepting them for who they are, which to me means that's their perspective. You're telling them their perspective is wrong. They're wrong for seeing the world that way. They can't help seeing the world that way. That's how the world looks to them, right? But if you ask them questions like, oh, I wonder why it looks that way to you, just to get curious, not even to change their mind, because your mind might change.
Yeah.
Just to see why does it look that way to you? Does this seem like the best path for your life? If so, then fucking keep going. If not, then get curious about it and see, does it make sense to do something different? That's all. And just accepting that everybody has a different perspective.
Yeah. I think, honestly, if we're going to fix the world, I think the biggest thing from it is just to stay curious. Stay curious with everything. Question everything. Question why you do the things that you do. Question why people do the things that they do. You will never come to an understanding of being like, okay, but you also come to an understanding of I understand why they are the way they are. Again, it's up to you if you want them in your life or not. You can't change everyone. And I think that's my hardest thing is that, that whole stray dog mentality. I want to save everyone. I literally want to save everyone. I feel like I'm this born again Christian, on a soapbox in the city being like, you need to find Christ. You need to find Christ. And that kills me because it's again, I'm not religious in any aspect, but I want to be like, have you tried breath work? You could really benefit from breath work. Or have you tried not being such a fucking asshole? Have you tried just maybe understanding? And that's the hardest bit is you can only lead a horse to water. Do you know what I mean? You can only give the tools that you can for people that, are willing to accept them. But at the same time, it's also not my place to preach about, this is what's made me happy. It's about people coming to you being like, oh, I'm curious because how you lead your life or how you show up is something that very much makes me curious that potentially I could find these tools to, find happiness or find peace or, just be comfortable in themselves. That's all I want. But again, I'm not going to sit here and, try and sell my course and be like, this is going to change your life. It's only the people that come to you, a lot of my closest friends and family, it's not from me, showing them, you too can be like this with, 5 steak nights and my breathwork course. It's not that. It's just like I've led a life for them to go, hey, like you seem different, or, you know, you seem happier. Like, what are you doing? It's that curiosity.
Yeah, I really feel like the world peace part comes at home first, right? Not at home with everybody who lives in my house, but at home within myself. So if I'm showing up and I'm not at peace, I can't show anybody how, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, I don't know what the fuck's going on because I'm not even at peace.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like seeing that this is the world. Like you said earlier, can we all operate from a place of love? That's probably never going to happen. Can I be okay with the world being the way that it is? If I can be at peace, then there aren't any problems. If I can talk with that mom I just talked with and she's not going to change her opinion and I'm completely at peace with it, there aren't any problems. Like, maybe she has problems. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think she needs to act differently. She's stuck in her perspective. That perspective is not getting her what she wants, and she can't see that. Am I at peace with that? I really feel like that for me, that's where I need to be at, you know? Because this is the world. The tree did grow crooked. The hurricane did tear the house down. Am I at peace with that?
That's that, like, don't you think that's actually like that polarity of like, I mean this in the nicest way, but I also, you know, again, from an ego or judgmental way, I'm like, have you seen this fuckhead? Like, oh my God, they're like, and I love speaking from that because it's like I'm speaking from that. I'm like a normal human, just, you know, interacting with people like, they're fucked. And then I'm also like underneath having those things of like, I feel really bad for them. Like, that must really suck. But, you know, they're in whatever state that they're in. And, you know, like, that's their healing, that's their journey, whether they want to go there or not. But I love that whole quote of like, you can only meet someone as deep as they've met themselves. And I keep on thinking that every time someone really irks me, I'm like, they just haven't delved deep. And that's cool. Like, not everyone's supposed to, you know, deep dive all the time. And that goes back to that whole thing of deep conversations, you know. Sometimes someone just wants to say like, how's the weather today? You know, because they just can't get there. And that should be okay.
Right. Yeah. And I think for us, it would be helpful. You know, this is more moving into the content of life, the game of life, but like finding the ramp, because I think a lot of people want to go where you're talking about. They want to be real. They want to know, like, I'm talking with Tani. She doesn't judge me. I can be whoever I want. And she's just going to be like, that's just who this person is. You know what I mean? Like, you can show up as that person. Fucking everybody's going to love you. I mean, you know, okay, maybe some people are going to be annoyed with how you are. That's fine. But yeah, man, that's yeah, I lost my train of thought.
You're also in a place, because I've noticed this lately, that like the people I'm truly triggering are people that I'm like, you're just projecting a lot of stuff that I know that like you need to work within yourself, and therefore it's like, it's not my problem. And that goes back to like feeling insecure, you know, with like a lot of like the hate comments and that. My mindset now is like, well, you're projecting something. So it's actually not about me. It's really not about me. And that almost gives me so much peace in itself of like, it's not about me. It really isn't. Like, you can't think that this is all about you and, you know, everyone's directly attacking you. They're really not. Everyone's just projecting from a place of like how they see life.
Yeah,
and there's freedom in that.
They're seeing how they would like you to be as an ideal person, you know, and they're judging you based on that. It's like, that's just how the mind works. They can't help that either. They think you should be doing it. They should think you should be parenting differently. You know, when your kid does something fucked up and you go to them and you hug them and you say, are you okay? You know, even though they were the aggressors or whatever, like, that's wrong. You shouldn't. You need to discipline your kid. It's like, I respect that's how you see it. Like, I love that, you know, and you're all fired up about it. And like, how cool it, you know, I would never say that to somebody, but like, how cool is it that you're so pissed off at me and you don't even see like your own viewpoint, your own perspective is what's pissing you off. And you don't even see that. Like, that's fucking amazing that's happening.
I know, because I'm like, let me know that part of your brain. Like, let's go through the like innings of like why you think those things the way you do. I'm not sitting there from a judgmental point of view. I'm sitting there being like, let's break it down. Why do you do these things? why do you do the things that you do? Like, what have you been brought up? What have you seen? What have you experienced in order for you to like have those opinions? That's where like I think a lot of people are like, well, you're judging me. I'm like, I'm not. I just really just want to know your standpoint of it.
Yeah. Right.
It's
And
just,
I feel like if you have that conversation, like that mother that I talked with, it's like, if I show up trying to change her mind and making her wrong, she's gonna know that. She's gonna know that's what's happening. She's gonna feel judged. She's gonna feel wrong. And for one, I don't actually want to believe that she's wrong, because that's an irrational belief in my mind. She's not wrong. This is just how her perspective has formed, has manifested.
yeah,
So if I can just show up and talk to her as a friend and get curious with her, like I'm in her sandbox and we're kind of just like exploring it together and seeing what she thinks about this. Like, what do you think about, like, how do they feel? Like when you tell them, I feel like you just want to be ordinary. Like, how do you feel like they, what do you think that they feel like when you say that?
yeah. But these
It's like,
people don't have that other sense of like, but how would they feel with me saying these things? I think that's also another thing that becomes that self-awareness. And then there's also on self-awareness, there's the pillars in which you see it from the people's lens, being like, oh, but how would that person feel if I was to say those things? That I think a lot of people just don't have that concept or ability to just see it from a different perspective and a
yeah.
different point of view.
And I feel like, why would I even need to do that? You know what I mean? It's like some people would probably say, like, I don't care what they think. If they have a problem with it, that's their problem. It's like, but how is it also your problem? You know what I mean? Like, you obviously want this kid in your life. If this person's feelings are hurt, they're looking at you like, you made my feelings hurt. You did this to me, right? They don't know that it's their own perspective. And how does this negatively affect you? Well, your kid doesn't want to be around you as much. Is that what you want? Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
really say it like that, but like, I feel like people need to see, how does this affect you? Is this behavior, is this perspective getting you what you want? Because if not, like, yeah, then maybe it makes sense to take a different look at it. But like you're saying, like, they don't know it's just their perspective. They're taking ownership of this perspective as if they've decided this perspective, right? So they have this ego ownership of it that they need to protect and defend it, which you don't need to protect and defend your perspective. It's just your perspective. Like, fucking, if you tell me the way I'm seeing something is fucking me up, like, oh my God, thanks so much for sharing that with me. Like, I didn't even see that. That's amazing. You gave me
Yeah.
such a gift.
Yeah. And that's like another thing as well is like, I think every point of like criticism that I get or, people are like, hey, you upset me. Like to me, I'm like, thank you. Like you've given me a different point of view of seeing it. But then I also, I just go back to that woman, the Karen woman. There's like a TikToker and she like talks openly about how her adult children don't speak to her anymore. And she's very much like, they're this, they're that. But like the comments always just like, yeah, but can you not see it from their perspective? Like how upsetting it would be for their mum to be, like just slandering them online. And she was like, nothing sort of thing. I love reading the comments because like a lot of people offering advice and a lot of like, you can fix this, like this seems like you're suffering sort of thing. But these people won't. And most people won't. Do you mean like most people won't get vulnerable? Most people won't go, yeah, I could probably, fix, X, Y, and Z. Everyone's like, no, no, this is who I am. And that in itself is just like, it's almost heartbreaking that as a society we can't mold and evolve and, have different opinions. This whole political shit show at the moment, like you have to choose a side. And it's like, but why do we have to choose a side? Like who's telling us that we have to choose a side? Like I actually don't want to be on either side. Like, Trump's a fucking ugly, McMuffin eating Diet Coke, just gross lump. And, you've got Kamala who, is just talking about, Starbucks cups affecting you, like the lipstick. And like, I don't assimilate or agree with all these people, but like, I'm not sitting on their side and being like, oh, yes, like, at the moment we've got like Australian elections and everyone's very much, it's so funny how it's changing now. It's very much like red, blue, like, no, it's just like Trump's, little protege. like Peter Dutton, that's our like maybe new prime minister. But it's like, can we not? This is disgusting, guys. Like, why are we falling into line and being like, we have to become one or the other? Can we not? Can we evolve? Can we have different opinions? Because my opinions, last week are completely different to, the opinions I have now based on the experience that I've had with different people, different conversations. It's okay to evolve.
Why the fuck wouldn't you want to? It's like that butterfly picture. There's a caterpillar and a butterfly at lunch, and the caterpillar says to the butterfly, like, you've changed. And the butterfly's like, yeah, we're supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's like, why wouldn't you want to be open? I just don't know. Because it's like, yeah, they would want to, but what prevents them from being open? Just this, like the confirmation bias, right? They are, what I mean? Like, people see something, they read two things, and it's like, they're more likely to gravitate toward what they already believe. That's what's going to look best to them. Obviously, that makes sense. But they're going to gravitate toward that because they have this sense of like a pride and this need not to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, what do you think? You're going to be wrong. That's just how it works. Like, you're going to be wrong about stuff. Hindsight, you're going to look back and be like, yeah, I really fucked that up. Like, what can I learn from this now so that in the future I stop fucking stuff up like that?
Yeah. I literally have this theory. I've spoken to my nearest and dearest about it. The theory is on ego, right? And you will notice these people in your life. There are so many people that I can literally say the ego comes from who they are as I am this person and I work for X, Y, and Z. And this is my personality. My personality is, work's been so busy. This is who I am. I'm so important. Because people, it could be work, it could be a lot of the time I notice I'm a mother. I'm a mother of two, I'm a mother of three, I'm a mother. It's very much I'm a mother. So therefore that's your ego. That's your title. What else is there? There's a few other things anti-vaxxer. That's my ego. Everyone's too scared to not put titles on themselves because titles make them more powerful because they're too worried about underneath who they are actually as people. It's their biggest insecurity. So I always notice these people in my life, I'm always that's just your ego speaking. That's just your ego title making you feel important because deep down you don't feel important without that title. And I think that's who we are as a society.
So they don't even recognize, you're saying this is a subconscious thing that's happening that they don't even realize is happening?
Yeah, but there's so much of it, career progression. You're only better, if you, are at the top. And, I've just gone on a work trip and I really noticed the ego over in Canberra. Or one, you just don't acknowledge people. You just and it's so funny, that ego, because you are that level. And it's I wouldn't care if you're, the biggest head honcho in the world as opposed to, the guy who cleans the toilets. I will still treat you like a human.
Right.
But we,
why would you not want to?
Yeah, we as a society are we have to treat these people based on their ego titles. But underneath all of that, we're still insecure little humans that gravitate towards this title to make ourselves feel powerful when we're really not. We are nothing without these titles.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to the pleasure that they're seeking.
Yeah.
Right. They want if I was somebody important, who, that would feel so good. I really feel it always comes back to our feelings. That's another thing this mom said too, is I don't care how you feel. Your feelings shouldn't have any impact on, I'm making her, this voice I'm using, I don't mean to make it sound like she's a bad person or anything. This is how she sees it. But she says that your feelings shouldn't have anything to do with your decisions. It's your feelings are your decisions. You feel bad about this net. If the net is that you feel bad about this decision, you're not going to do it. If you feel great about it, you're going to do it. So your feelings are driving the whole show. So, I've been digging into pleasure a lot. It's the pleasure principle, right? We're trying to avoid pain and we're trying to get pleasure. You know what I mean? So if we can disconnect from that drug if we can disconnect from constantly chasing this endorphins and stuff like that, always trying to feel better. It's that hedonic treadmill that you're on. If we could get off of that, it's like cutting the sugar. It's like not, like if you eat, I'm just like reflecting on my own perspective right now and how ramped up I'm getting, which is hilarious. Right? If you eat this ice cream, right? You eat this sundae and it's like got syrup on it and it's just fucking awesome. And then somebody's like, hey, you're like, oh, I still wish I had more to eat. You're like, you want this apple? It's like, this apple is going to be like the biggest piece of shit that you've ever eaten, because you're comparing it to this juicy ice cream that you just had. So in my mind, what I'm looking at doing for myself is disconnecting from all of these very extreme levels of pleasure. So then I can move back to actual life and fucking be amazed by the apple that I'm eating, go sit with my wife, walk to the village, and just like get the full range of pleasure from these simple experiences. Now I can get off the treadmill because I don't need all these things. I don't need to be somebody who's important because I'm already loving my life with just the basics.
Yeah, I love that. I actually love that so much. And there's like, again, so much in the lessons of like this week that I've learned. But like with our wedding anniversary, like I was really reflecting on like who we've become as people. And, and a lot of the times like I was searching like wedding anniversary and I was having a look at people and it's like they were listing everything that they'd accomplished. Like we're in a new house and we've got 2 new cars, and it very much came from a place of like materialism. And that's well and good. If that's your goals, that's cool. If that makes you happy, again, not judging. If that makes you happy, you do. But then I also came from a place of like how proud I was of our marriage and just how much we just have grown as humans together, as being together, and always trying to, show up for each other. We always try and want to be better people for each other. And it's almost like a lot of people in relationships, I find that like if things get uncomfy, it's like, oh, we're going to drink it, we're going to smoke it, we're just going to shush it away. But I think sitting in the real uncomfy bits and really sort of like pulling it apart and trying to work out why we do the things that we do, why we hurt the way we hurt, or why we hurt people the way we do, all comes down to just like really trying to work out the uncomfy stages is like stages of growth and the stages that, really, really suck. But they're also so potent because it goes back to that whole happiness, dopamine. We want beautiful, happy life. We that's what we all want. But you see society as, consumerism, materialism, just gluttony, just no one's happy in that sense. But there also is the happiness in the sense of the people that truly just appreciate things for like what they are and as they are. Not trying to mold them, fix them. It's just as it stands. Letting people be who they are, not expecting from people. It's just, it is what it is. And once you're in that place, I think that's where true beauty and true happiness comes from. But it's very hard because we're all plugged in.
Yeah, and I think what you said about 2 cars and houses and stuff, like if you need those things to get your fix, right? Because you're so amped up, it's almost like, okay, so insulin resistance, are you familiar with that? Like, like you eat so many snacks and Snickers bars all the time and stuff, like you're not very resistant to insulin, like you're overproducing all this insulin. And as you cut those things out, because I quit sugar like 8 years ago, added sugar, as you cut those things out, other stuff just becomes like strawberries are like, oh my God, it's like you're eating a strawberry and you're having a mental orgasm. You're just like, this is amazing. So if you need a new car because that's where you're at, like you need to get your fix from that high level, you're fucked. If you can't get the new car, if you can't get the new laptop and you needed that in order to get your next fix, sounds terrible the way I'm describing it, but that seems like that's what's happening. If you need that and you can't get it, you're screwed. So focusing on those basics. It sounds like that's your relationship, right? 2 people who like are willing to take a look at their perspectives, work through their shit, lay their stuff on the table and say like, here's how it looks to me. I think you're being a fucking asshole right now. Or here's how it looks to me. I'm not attracted to you anymore because this, and this, right? in being able to grow together, like, wow, what amazing satisfaction you can get from a relationship. And I really feel like you and I are forming that relationship here too. And I'm actually excited for us to get into a conflict where it's like, on the podcast the other day, you're like really interrupting me. And I was like, oh my God, was I really interrupting you? Like, to be able to just test myself to see, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle hearing her perspective? And am I going to be able to respect how things look to her, reflect on it myself to see if I need a change? Like, that's a lot of satisfaction that you can get from a basic type relationship. You know what I mean? It doesn't cost anything. We have a Riverside account. That's the extent of how much this relationship costs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also like, I know it's so weird. I had that thought as well. And I was like, imagine if we had like a full on conflict. But then in my head, I was like, I don't know. I think you're very sort of like easygoing. I think I'm very easygoing as well. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm shit with time. Like, I have full hand on hand. Like, I'm shit with time. Like, I'm always late. Like, that's, again, like, could be a downfall of like my humanness. But like, I'm fully accepting that that could piss other people off when they're like, you need to be on time. But I think there's like that flow of like understanding people the way they are, and like also not seeing it of like a place of like malicious like intent, if that makes sense. It's just like, that's just who they are, and that's cool. You can like cope with it, or if it really bugs you so much, have a conversation, have an open conversation. I'm happy to like call out people and be like, you piss me off because of X, Y, and Z. And most of the time it works in our favor because we get to work in our relationship and it gets better. Or you have the people that put the ego up that is like, I'm not, you are. And, I think that's, really hard to find that balance with people. But I think when you find your people, it's easy to, go through conflict, because at the end of the day, our own, goal is just to be at peace and happy. Like, no one actually wants the suffering. So I think when you find these people that just they're not seeking, like the dopamine hits of like drama or, conflict, that's when it's like you're in a flow of like, oh, we all want the same things.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I really like reflected on that, being like, wow, like I've come so far that like I can start questioning like, well, that's not your truth. You don't believe that. And that's the hardest thing, is that you've got people that can be like, you this and that, and like this is, and you can take that on, or you can also take it from like I could potentially like do better. Do you mean like I can reflect on it? I can be like, okay, cool. I think that's the hardest thing that I struggle with in life, is like I'm very vulnerable with people being like, we're all human. Like, I probably didn't act out in my greatest self. Neither did you. But then it's always like, well, I did. You didn't. And I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. That's the hardest part.
Yeah. And I feel like we got to disconnect from the pointing out to them that they didn't act in their highest self, right? Because I think that's just a flaw in our minds to think like, for me, I do know now that the perspective's playing out, which means that whatever seemed best to them in the moment is what they had to do. Like, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, if it made sense to snap at me, well, that's what made sense to do to them. I'm not going to get offended by that. So my wife and I just had a conversation. I'm going to share this, but it's not going to. Well, I think my wife doesn't want me painting her in a bad light. And she says, I know you think you're not painting me in a bad light, but you are painting me in a bad light. And I'm like, I can respect that. So we were talking, she's like, maybe pick up another day of work. And she's like, I was thinking about going to yoga instructor training. And like, I totally like looked down and like didn't respond. Like, I fucked that up. But so she's like, see, this is why I don't want to tell you stuff, because I feel like you're judging me. And we've moved to a new place in our relationship where it's like, I have to, whatever she says, I have to go in and see, like, is that actually true? What she's saying, is that really true? And a lot of times I'm like, yeah, that's true. Whereas before I would have totally been defensive. So I'm like, yeah, you tell me something and my mind is automatically going to have its initial responses. I'm not trying to judge it in a negative way, but my mind might be judging it in a negative way. Like, you say you're going to be a yoga instructor. Immediately, my mind might think, you don't really want to do that, or that's not going to work out, or there's not a lot of opportunities available for that, or you're going to have to spend 8 weeks and $1,000 doing that, right? My mind is automatically going to do these things, but I'm okay with that, but for her to share with me, like, I feel like you judge these things, like, how powerful is that to grow our relationship, right? Because then now I can say, like, yeah, my mind, it does do that, but I recognize it as just my mind doing its thing. But I know that your mind is doing your thing. So this seems like a good idea. So, like, she was kind of stressed out about, figuring out what she wants to do for an extra day of work. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's not make this a big deal. Let's just, like, take our time. We don't need to rush, lay it out, see what works best for everybody. Like, there doesn't need to be a lot on this decision, which what a crazy place to move into in a relationship.
I love that though. Jen, do the yoga course. Do it. But like, I also feel like that is very much like Chris and like Els and me. Like, I always go back to like how, like, I feel like it's like men need to find solutions. When women say something, they instantly start thinking, well, that's not going to work because of X, Y, and Z. And, they're trying to piece it together as like a solution-based thing. But I think as women, sometimes it's so nice for us just to air stuff out. Where it lands. Like, I don't want you to fix it. I don't want you to make solutions for it. I just want to physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, just put it out there. Just see where it lands. And it just be okay there without us trying to mold it and, change it to whatever it is. Like, if that's a dream, like, there's a lot of like times where Ellie will say something to Chris, and like, Chris, I can see him like already just trying to fix the situation. And I keep on saying, like, you don't have to, fix it. Just let it land as it is. Let her get that out. Don't interrupt her. Just let it come out, free flow. You don't have to change it. And like, I think he's really started to just like, let her talk, let her just say her piece, whether he believes in it or not, or whether he has, opinions about it, just letting it land and just seeing where it goes. And I'm like, there's just a softness to it. There's just like a beauty to just putting shit out there and just, mic drop.
Yeah, I feel like that changes the relationships too. And it's like, if two people are in this place where they can look at their perspectives together, great. Like, that's going to be amazing. Like, that relationship is going to be fantastic, I would imagine. On the flip side of that, if you show up in a relationship where the other person doesn't know about perspectives and all this other stuff, if you're still showing, I feel like if I'm still showing up from that place, that's going to automatically start changing the relationship, even though they don't have any clue what's going on, because like, whoa, he didn't get offended by that. Or like, I told him this and he was like, oh shit, yeah, I could see that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes a safe place.
Oh, it's nice. I think it's nice. I think it's like good to have a good, I love having a good yarn in a relationship, but I also just love like a vulnerability-esque relationship, like with everyone in my life. Like, just be vulnerable with me, even at work. Like, I've got the best boss at the moment, and I'm so honest with like, hey, I can't come in because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling it today. And she's like, that's cool. There's no like, I have explosive diarrhea and I'm on the top. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no bullshit. It's just, not feeling it today, really not in a good mental space. Like, I love operating from that. And when I can operate from that, like, very authentic, vulnerable state, I'm the happiest. When I have to put a mask on, I'm like...
Yeah, and I think people to hear this, and they might think like, well, I'm not going to be a doormat. I'm not going to just... Somebody says, well, I couldn't show up to work today because, I had explosive diarrhea. It's like, they're probably just giving an excuse. Now, what, I'm just going to accept everybody for who they are and let them not show up for work? It's like, that is not what we're saying. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think that's what you're saying. It's like, if you see a pattern of behavior, if it's still not working out in the relationship, that's okay too. This still can happen from a place of peace. Like, hey, sorry,
yeah,
I need to let you go. Like, you have a shit ton going on. Like, I totally feel for you, but we need to get this job done. And you don't really show up to work. Like, you're having a trouble with that. So like, we got to let you go. So it's not passivity. It's not, you're still going to do whatever makes sense. You're still going to do whatever seems best. You're not going to get walked on. if you can see the world this way, if you can operate from a place of love and from a place of peace, that's what people want. That's what you want to be living from. But you can still do the hard shit and say like, this sucks. Like, but I got to fire you. That really sucks. I hate it. I feel so bad. But like, this is what we got to do.
Exactly. Like, and that's what the thing, like, I love that. I like have a lot of friends, but I've got this one friend in particular, and she is so, it's almost like she's just like seen death and gone through so much shit that we call it spicy sadness. And like the stuff we send each other is just like not fit for like human consumption. There's a lot of like messed up stuff that we send, like suicide and things like that. And it's not from a place of like making fun of it. It's also making fun of it from a place of like, yeah, I think we've seen like the depths of hell together. But it's also nice to sort of have that being like, I know, I love that polarity of like, yes, life can be so, so beautiful and great, but I'm also acknowledging, accepting that like life can be really fucked up and really messed up and really dark. And there's also space for that too. But there's space for that in terms of being, supported and, you understand that you too can come back to the light, but the darkness is also like an okay thing to be in. Just knowing you're safe and you've got the tools to, help yourself.
Yeah. Right. And that those things, those are going to happen. We're going to struggle with stuff. Like Ram Dass, Ram Dass.
Yeah.
He's talking about, here I am, some big spiritual guru, and I'm freaking bawling my eyes out in the bathtub over a woman. Right. So it's like, that stuff's still going to happen, but it can be beautiful at the same time. Right. Yeah. So it's like, you can be in the midst of a depression and be like, oh, I'm really fucked up right now. Like you're still seeing how it's playing out, and you still get to enjoy like, wow, look at this part of the movie. I can see this character's really having a hard time with this here. So you kind of pop out of that and you see like, all right, well, I need to see some new shit here, and I just haven't seen it yet. And I'm not in control of when I get those insights, but like, here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like, if you can see the beauty in the hardship, the darkness, and know that like that is something that is always just like, it's that whole train track theory of like, your life will never just be good or just bad. Like, it's train tracks. You can have the most beautiful euphoric experiences, but you can also have the most like hardest, like heartbreaking, just like gut wrenching times, and they live together. It's a polarity. And there's beauty in that. There's beauty in the suffering. There's beauty in that. It's just, it has to fit together.
Yeah.
That's how we cure the world.
Right. If that's happening and we're disliking that it's happening, there's the unhappiness right there. So it's like, my daughter, she's just about to be 17. She can be irritated with me, want to ignore me, whatever. It's like, if I don't like that, if I have a problem with that, there's my unhappiness. I have to see like, this is just how it all unfolded. And yeah, even if it's hard right now, even if I would prefer it to be different, well, too bad, because it's not different. So if I don't like it, well, I'm not going to suffer.
Exactly. And I always love that thing about, how they say like the universe will always give you what you need. Like from the greatest time, like I've always just thought like, fuck you, universe. Like we tried so hard for a second child. We had so many like miscarriages, child like loss. It was horrific. And there also comes in the quote of like, if you push it too hard, it ends up being shit. Like, it's very true. And it truly was like, that just wasn't my path. And, like I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, I did push that a bit too hard. And, look how it became very traumatic, because I wasn't in a free flow. But when I just let go, it's that whole let go and be dragged. I got dragged through it, and it was fucking horrific. But now I'm like, I let go and I see my life now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want it any other way. Like, it's that, just surrender.
Yeah, I feel like that's you're trying to be the driver when you can't. You're trying to be in control of it because you have these desires, right? You want the second kid so badly. But it's like, that's what Stoicism is great at. It's like, it's not up to me how things work out. It's not up to me if I get the other kid. Yes, I can do the things that produce the kid. I can go to IVF. I can do all these things. But whether it works out or not, I don't get to decide that, So I need to recognize like my mind is desiring this outcome. It's so attached to this outcome that I'm going to be fucked if I don't get it. And if I don't want to be fucked, I'm going to have to just let go, like you said, and let go or be dragged.
Yeah. I love that quote. So I always think about it. And I'm like, are you going to let go? Or are you going to drag this? Are you going to drag this? Are you going to drag your bad mood into, the night? Are you going to drag, like, let go? Just, it is what it is. And maybe I'm a bit too carefree, but it's working.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to make an offer to people. Like, if you want to be in this space with us, then welcome. Come on, because this is the community that is being built. I don't want to say we're building it. This is what's happening. People are going to gravitate toward us because they want to be free of all their bullshit. They want to be like, okay, look, life's going to do whatever life does, but I just want to be happy. So we have nothing to sell you. We're not selling you anything. We have no courses at this point. We have no courses. We have no events coming up, just a podcast. If you want to get on and say, hey, you're sharing this stuff, and here's why it doesn't work for my life. Here's why what you're saying will not work for my life. That's going to be a gift for us. So put it in the comments. We'd love to address it. We'd love to get on here and talk about, what people are having a problem with. But I'm telling you, if you can come to this place and see what we're talking about, you're going to just love it all. It's going to open up. You're going to grow, shit's going to happen for you. I don't know. Here I am making all these claims, but I can't articulate it in a way that people are going to really understand at this point. But it's changed a lot for me, and I'm sure, it sounds like it's changed a lot for you. So I love hanging out with you, and I'm having such a great time doing this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, I think it's just been I was thinking about it, I was really reflecting, been it's so cool. I just feel like we're very the same in terms of our mindset and where we are. Weird, how our two daughters named E, both cancers in the world. That is so weird. That is so weird. But I just feel sometimes you will have people that mirror each other, and it's almost it just works to such beautiful sort of, outward reach of people that are also hey, I also think like this. These are my views. I love it. I just love that collective community of just yeah, I too think that, it's not a judgment. It's just a place of me too. And not even the Me Too movement, but, we could maybe throw in, a set of steak knives, or, we could get maybe those, remember those cult-ish looking sort of snuggies? We could maybe do that in a color.
Everybody gets those. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are the official. Yeah. Well, we could, it's the new Me Too movement.